Part 11. A New Name. December 1847. The little rowing boat, just as dawn broke over the Atlantic. Two French sailors hauled Kevin aboard without a word. Neither spoke English. Kevin spoke no French. For several awkward moments they simply looked at one another. Finally one of the sailors smiled, pointed towards the deck and then towards the galley. The universal language of the sea, "You're safe, now eat." The brig was called La Marie de Bray. She was neither large nor elegant. She carried timber, wool, barrels of salted fish, and whatever cargo could profitably be moved between the western coasts of France and Ireland. To her captain, human passengers were simply another form of cargo, provided they caused no trouble. Captain Etienne Morel was a compact man in his 50s, with weather-beaten skin and intelligent eyes. Late that afternoon, he motioned for Kevin to join him near the stern. Through a mixture of broken English, patient gestures, and a few shared words, they managed a conversation. "You?" The captain pointed towards Ireland. "Leave?" Kevin nodded, "Yes." The captain studied him. "Trouble?" Kevin looked back towards the fading Irish coastline. "A great deal." Captain Morel merely nodded. He had carried enough refugees to know when not to ask further questions. For 2 days the voyage remained calm. Kevin worked where he could. He scrubbed decks, coiled rope, helped pump the bilge. Hard work had always steadied his thoughts. The sailors appreciated willing hands, and by the 3rd day they treated him less like a passenger and more like one of the crew. Even without sharing a common language, respect had begun to grow. Each evening Kevin climbed to the bow alone. Ireland had long disappeared beneath the horizon. Nothing surrounded the brig now except endless water and winter sky. It reminded him painfully of Sean and Michael. He found himself wondering whether the same sea had carried their last thoughts. The question haunted him. One afternoon the captain approached, carrying an English-language newspaper printed in Cork. He tapped the front page, then handed it to Kevin. Although reading remained difficult, the larger headlines were unmistakable. More arrests in Mahon murder inquiry. Below that, another line. Authorities seek additional suspects. Captain Morel watched Kevin carefully. "Your name?" Kevin slowly shook his head. "I don't know." The captain understood immediately. He folded the paper. "Good." That evening, Kevin sat alone below deck. He unfolded Anne's last letter. Its creases had already begun to wear thin. He read the final lines again. "Wherever you are, come to us when you can." He closed his eyes. England. It lay only a short journey across the sea, yet he knew that if the authorities truly believed him connected to the murder, Liverpool would be one of the first places they might watch. Going to Anne now would place her in danger. The realization hurt more deeply than any hunger he had endured. Captain Morel joined him. The older man carried 2 tin cups filled with steaming coffee. He pointed toward the crucifix resting in Kevin's hand. "Famine?" "My wife." He pointed towards a little wooden boat. "My son." The captain nodded respectfully. Then he spoke one word. "Nom?" Kevin looked puzzled. The captain repeated it. "Name?" He pointed first at himself. "Etienne." Then at Kevin. Kevin answered automatically. "Kevin Kiely." The captain remained silent for several moments. Finally he said quietly, "In France, new life." He pointed once more towards Kevin. "New name." The words remained with Kevin long after the captain had gone. A new name. Could a man truly leave behind the one his parents had given him? The one Anne had spoken on their wedding day? The one Sean, Michael and Maeve had called him since childhood? It felt impossible. And yet, if Kevin Kiely remained alive on paper, those who had sheltered him might continue to suffer. Patrick, Catherine, even Anne. Perhaps Kevin Kiely would have to disappear so that the people he loved might finally be left in peace. Several days later the brig reached the Breton coast. Grey cliffs rose from the sea. Fishing villages clung stubbornly to the shoreline. Church spires pierced the winter sky. To Kevin, everything felt strangely familiar. The salt air, the boats, the stone cottages. Yet everything was different. The language, the faces, the customs. He had only crossed a narrow stretch of water, yet he had entered another world. Before the ship entered harbour, Captain Morel handed Kevin a folded document. Inside lay a simple note written in careful English. The bearer has worked honestly aboard my vessel. He has earned his passage. Signed, Etienne Morel, captain of La Marie de Bray. The captain smiled. A man, he searched for the English word, works. He eats. Kevin understood. He clasped the captain's hand firmly. Thank you. The older sailor simply nodded. That same week in Liverpool, Anne finally received Kevin's letter. It had travelled through several priests before reaching her sister's home. She read it 3 times before allowing Bridget to see it. Maeve sat patiently beside the fire. What does father say? Anne forced a smile. He says he's safe. When's he coming? Anne looked toward the window. Outside, the streets bustled with carts and factory workers. Somewhere beyond the Irish Sea lay a husband she could no longer reach. I don't know. Maeve accepted the answer. Children often possess remarkable faith. Anne wished she still did. On his final evening aboard, Captain Morel approached Kevin one last time. He handed him a small leather purse. Inside were several French francs. Kevin immediately shook his head. I cannot. The captain gently closed Kevin's fingers around the purse. You worked. He pointed towards the harbour. You begin. Then he tapped the folded recommendation and, he smiled, choose good name. That night Kevin walked alone along the harbour wall. The moon reflected softly upon the water. He removed the little wooden boat from his pocket. He turned it over slowly. Kiely, he whispered. The name seemed to drift away upon the cold sea breeze. He thought of his father, his grandfather, generations who had lived and died beneath that name. He realized he was about to become the last of them, not because the family had ended, but because Kevin Kiely could no longer safely exist. Slowly, almost reverently, he folded Anne's letter, placed it beside the crucifix and the little boat, and tucked them deep inside his coat. Those things he would never surrender. His name he would. At sunrise, a stranger stepped ashore in France. Kevin Kiely remained behind on the deck of La Marie de Bray, belonging forever to Ireland and to memory. The man who walked down the gangplank carried no past that could easily be traced, only grief, hope, and a future that no one, not even he, could yet imagine. Part 12. The Last Crossing. France and England, winter 1847. The port of Saint-Malo stirred to life long before sunrise. Fishing boats slipped quietly through the harbour mouth, while merchants shouted prices in a language Kevin could barely understand. For 3 mornings he simply watched. Everything was unfamiliar. The church bells sounded different, bread smelt different, even the sea seemed to move with another rhythm. He was no longer in Ireland, yet every morning, before beginning work, he instinctively turned west, towards home. Captain Etienne Morel had spoken to a dockmaster on Kevin's behalf. Within days he found work unloading barrels of salt fish and repairing fishing nets. The labour was hard. Hard work had never frightened him. Silence did. No one called him by name, and when the foreman asked what he should write in the ledger, Kevin hesitated. For the first time in 43 years, he answered differently, Jean. The foreman nodded and wrote the name without another question, just like that. Just like that, Kevin Kiely ceased to exist in the records of one more country. Weeks passed. He learned enough French to bargain for bread, to ask for work, to thank strangers. But every night he dreamed in Irish. He dreamed of Kenmare Bay, of Sean laughing at the bow of his curragh, of Michael carving a little wooden boat, of Maeve chasing chickens outside the cottage. Then the dream always ended the same way, the sound of hammers, the crash of falling stone, the silence that followed. He would awaken with tears already on his face. In Liverpool, Anne settled slowly into a life she had never imagined. The textile mill was deafening, the hours endless. Yet there was bread, there was shelter. Maeve attended the parish school and soon began reading better than her mother. One evening she proudly announced, I can write father's name. Anne smiled. Show me. Carefully, with deliberate strokes, Maeve wrote, Kevin Kiely. Anne stared at the words for a long time. Then she folded the paper and tucked it inside her Bible. It was the only place she could think to keep something so precious. Months later another letter arrived. This one bore no return address. Inside was only a single sheet. The handwriting was unmistakably Kevin's. I'm alive. Do not search for me. The less you know, the safer you will be. Tell Maeve that every sunrise I think of Ireland. Tell her that no matter what name the world may know me by, I shall always remain her father." There was no signature. None was needed. Anne pressed the letter to her chest. She understood. If she did not know where he was, she could never betray him. It was the cruelest act of love she had ever experienced. It was also the greatest. Across the Irish Sea, the investigation into Dennis Mahon's murder continued. Men were questioned. Some were imprisoned. Others were released. Witnesses contradicted one another. Rumours flourished. The newspapers confidently declared the case nearly solved, then declared it uncertain once more. As the years passed, memories blurred. Some insisted there had been 4 attackers. Others swore there had been more. Stories grew with every retelling. Kevin read none of them. He had no wish to. History would decide what history wished to remember. Patrick remained on his little farm in Roscommon, and from time to time he heard whispers. "Whatever became of your brother?" Patrick always gave the same answer. He went where many Irishmen went, abroad. It was true, it simply wasn't the whole truth. Patrick never spoke another word, not to neighbours, not to priests, not even to Catherine. Some promises require silence. Years turned into decades. The Great Hunger slowly loosened its grip upon Ireland, but its scars remained. Fields that once held cottages became pasture. Children grew to adulthood, speaking of places they'd never seen except through the memories of their parents. Ships continued carrying Irish families across the oceans. Some sought fortune. Most simply sought tomorrow. Maeve grew into a young woman. She married an Irish carpenter in Liverpool. On the day of her wedding, Anne handed her a small bundle wrapped in faded linen. Inside lay 3 things: a silver crucifix, a tiny wooden boat, and a paper upon which she had first written her father's name as a little girl. "There may come a day," Anne said softly, "when your children ask about their grandfather." Maeve nodded. "What shall I tell them?" Anne looked toward the window. Far beyond the rooftops lay the Irish Sea. Beyond that, Ireland. "You tell them he was an honest man. He loved his family. He loved his country. And sometimes history is so cruel that good men are forced to disappear." No authenticated record has ever been found describing what became of the Irish labourer known in the port ledgers of St. Malo simply as Jean. Some claimed he settled permanently in Brittany. Others believe he joined a cruise of merchant ships sailing the Atlantic. One story placed him in the vineyards of Bordeaux. Another said he died of fever within a few years. None could ever be proven. If anyone knew the truth, they carried it to their grave. Yet in one weathered Bible passed from mother to daughter and then to granddaughter, 3 objects remained carefully wrapped together: a silver crucifix, a child's wooden fishing boat, and 2 letters. Whenever the family gathered, the oldest among them would unfold the brittle pages and tell the same story, not of politics, not of secret societies, not even of landlords. They had spoke instead of a fisherman from Kerry who believed that paying his rent, loving his family, and working hard would always be enough. They spoke of a mother who crossed the sea so that her daughter might live. They spoke of 2 brothers who never returned from the water. And they remember the father who vanished so that those he loved would not have to. The world forgot Kevin Kiely. His family never did. Epilogue. History often remembers the powerful, the marquesses, the politicians, the generals, the judges. But the Great Famine was endured not by great men alone. It was endured by ordinary families whose names rarely appeared in newspapers, whose cottages disappeared beneath grazing fields, and whose descendants were scattered across the world. Kevin Kiely never became a famous man. He never led an army. He never held office. He never wrote a book. He simply loved his family, worked the land that had sustained generations before him, and tried to survive one of the darkest chapters in Irish history. In the end, that was enough, for while history may forget a name, it never truly erases a life that was loved.